Hello and welcome to Education in Focus, powered by Chalkboard News. I am Dan McCaleb, Vice President of News and Content at Franklin News Foundation, which publishes chalkboardnews.com. Chalkboard is a news website dedicated to issues related to K through 12 education. Joining me today is Brendan Clary, Chalkboard's K through 12 editor. How are you, Brendan?
I'm doing well, Dan. How about you?
Thank you. I'm doing fine. We're recording this on Monday, October 16th. Brendan, school districts pretty much across the country say they are suffering from some sort of a teacher shortage. In Michigan recently, the governor signed legislation that would allow retired teachers to return to the classroom to help fill that stated void while still collecting their taxpayer-funded pensions and, of course, being paid by taxpayers to teach. But you did a little digging into the data, Brendan, and found that the number of teachers in the state has increased in recent years, while the number of students has declined. In fact, student-to-teacher ratios have continued to decline over the years. Tell us more about this, Brendan, and what you make of it.
Yeah, so no, that's exactly sort of the overview, right? That Governor Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan signed legislation that would allow teachers to collect a pension and also go back to work given certain requirements. I mean, they were able to do that before, but it was like a 9-month waiting period, and now it's a 6-month waiting period. And also they can go back to work immediately if they're making, I believe, $15,100 less than their previous position. So, you know, if you're a substitute or you're taking something and it's a different kind of thing. There's special stipulations too for superintendents. I think that they can't go, back right into being a superintendent again or a superintendent at a different school district after retirement. There's some different protocol there, and I'm a little fuzzier on that. But essentially, yeah, what you said is, this is a law that Whitmer's office said would help fill the teacher shortage in Michigan, in a press release about the signing. And so that's been something that we have heard a lot about. But I was curious about what is the number of teachers in Michigan versus the number of students. I mean, we've heard a lot about a teacher shortage, but we've also heard a lot about, students leaving the classroom and not coming back during COVID, right? That there's a number of students nationwide who have been out of the classroom for some time and out of schools and sort of, either moving or just kind of generally some, unaccounted for. And so that was my question is, what is the ratio of teachers to students look like and how bad is the teacher shortage? And according to MI or Michigan school data.
So this is the state's data.
Yeah. So this is collected and compiled by a state agency. And I've reported about them as well in terms of how they work with school districts to sort of find information and collect it. But this is a state agency that works with other state agencies. They found the student to teacher ratio in classrooms has been shrinking as the number of teachers is on the rise and as fewer students are enrolled in schools across the state.
I think you reported the specific numbers.
Yeah. So in 2017, in the 2017 to 2018 school year, the student to teacher ratio was 17.3.
So 17 on average. You take all the classrooms across the state, the average works out to 17.3 students per teacher.
Right. So 17 to 1. And then in the 2021-2022 school year, the ratio was 15.8 or 16 to 1. So you'd have 16 students to 1 teacher. And I also found since the 2017 to 2018 school year, the state has added over 3,100 teacher positions, while over 80,800 fewer students are enrolled in the state. And so these are, the Michigan School Data website also says that recent statewide trends demonstrate an increase in the number of teachers employed in school districts. So that's a different sort of narrative than what the governor's office has said about teacher shortages. We have Michigan School Data saying, the state agency website saying the recent trend shows an increase in the number of teachers employed in the school districts. So I reached out to the governor's office and, have asked about that and tried to explain, there seems to be a discrepancy here. And I have not heard back yet. This is, I think, the third or fourth time I've reached out to them, and I'm going to keep reaching out to them and see what they say. But, it's an interesting, I guess, tension there of, what one side is saying and then another agency is saying a different kind of thing. But, that's there's something going on there, and I'm going to try to find out, Dan.
I think we've found that similar things across the country. And when we've analyzed it, we hear from school districts, not just in Michigan, which is what we're talking about here, but in other states, essentially putting a message out there that there's these huge teacher shortages. And I'm not saying there's not teacher shortages, particularly in certain areas. I think we've heard, like special education teachers, they're harder to come by. Like more advanced math type teachers, they're harder to come by. But it seems like overall with this trend, and again, it's not just Michigan, but it's in other states when we've looked into it, there are more teachers now than there were pre-COVID, and there are fewer students. So if there is an overall teacher shortage now, boy, that teacher shortage must have been really bad, back in I think the data you quoted, the initial data was 2017, 2018. So I don't know. What's your take?
Yeah, I think what I've seen about this is that there has been, a lot of concern about teacher shortage. And I think that you're right that like the specific positions is sometimes, hard to fill. Like a district can't get enough special education teachers, for example. And that if you can't find, special education teachers, you have a teacher shortage, right? But if you see the overall data trending upward, sort of like how, like if you see overall positions being filled, more teachers are there and fewer students are there, then is it disingenuous to say that there's a teacher shortage or that, that districts are having problems or that, we have to try to target this? So I think that there might be more nuance needed, as often is the case with some of our conversation about these sort of difficult issues. Like, do we have to say like, look, there are specific types of teacher shortages instead of just calling it a teacher shortage? Like, is it wrong to say that there's a teacher shortage? Like maybe it is, and maybe it's not, because the definition of teacher shortage is a district needs, if a district can't find the people that it needs to fill the positions that it has, and that there are so many openings at the beginning of a school year that they cannot fill and that have been open for more than 6. Maybe there's a specific definition there. The hard part is that I haven't gotten anything back from the governor's office, and so like that lack of clarity and calling it this, and sort of maybe some of this political gamesmanship involved could be sort of obfuscating some of those nuances there. So you're right that there is room, I think, to have that nuance of there are positions that are harder to fill, but in this case that's not necessarily clear, and the data shows that overall,
certainly not across the board.
And that's specifically too with the Michigan school data, that is specifically like teachers, not support staff, which I think has also sort of been trending up. But there might be specific roles, like you're in a rural school district and you can't find a counselor who's qualified, and so there are different districts are going to have different needs, and there's different definitions, I'm sure, of teacher shortage. So
well, keep asking them, Brendan. Let's see if they ever get back to you on what their definition of a teacher shortage is. But that is all the time we have. Listeners can keep up with this story and all stories related to K through 12 education at chalkboardnews.com. For Brendan Clary, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe. Thank you for listening.